Bersatu President Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman will know on November 9 whether he will be acquitted or convicted on corruption charges relating to Bersatu youth funds. According to the Judicial Department's online system today, High Court Judge Dato Azza Abdul Hamid will deliver his verdict 6 months after the defense wrapped up their case. Lead prosecutor Dato Wan Shaharuddin Wan Ladin confirmed this when contacted today. On April 11, Azza reserved his judgment after hearing submissions from both parties at the end of the defense case. Azza said he would inform both parties when he was ready to deliver his verdict. He said, "Do not worry, I will not take long. My officer will inform both parties when the ruling is ready." The prosecution argued that the former minister had malicious intent and abused his friend's trust when he instructed Bersatu Assistant Treasurer Rafiq Hakim Razali to withdraw Rs1 million from Armada's bank account. However, Saddiq's lead counsel Gobind Singh Deo argued that the withdrawn money was meant for organizing activities which coincided with the party's goals as well as to fight for social justice and safeguard the people's welfare. Gobind also submitted that Syed Saddiq's charge under Section 405 of the Penal Code for abetting Rafiq in criminal breach of trust involving the Rs1 million in funds should be demolished, as the charge sheet explicitly states that Rafiq had acted dishonestly. However, he said, the prosecution had not proffered any argument to suggest Rafiq had acted dishonestly, nor challenged any evidence that supported the facts that Rafiq was not dishonest in withdrawing and utilizing the funds for the people's welfare that constituted misappropriation. Former Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin gave a statement to the police again today, this time over an allegation he made on the campaign trail for the Simpang Jaram by-election. Campaigning at a Sarama on September 3, the Parikatan Nasional chairman allegedly claimed that the Malays have lost power. Bukit Aman Criminal Investigation Department Director Shuhaili Zain confirmed that the Bersatu president and Pago MP had his statement recorded this morning. Muhyiddin reportedly arrived at the Malaysian Investment Development Authority's (MIDA) office in Kuala Lumpur at about 9:15 a.m. to give his statement. Investigations against him are being conducted by the Classified Crime Investigation Unit under Section 4A of the Election Offences Act and Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. Previously, Deputy Inspector General of Police Ayub Khan Maidan Piche said there were 2 investigation papers opened against Muhyiddin following statements he made on fatwas and the Malays losing power. Muhyiddin had given a statement to the police last week.
Dr. Mahathir Mohamad took up his new post as an advisor to a grouping of Parikatan Nasional-led states to undermine Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, says former Sabah Chief Minister Saleh Saddiq. In a Facebook post, Saleh said Mahathir's role as the unofficial advisor to the opposition-led states would only benefit the former prime minister if he could win a seat in the Dewan Rakyat and become the opposition leader. Saleh said, "Mahathir is a very smart politician. He is smarter than most of us. He wants to have a more effective influence over the political domain so that he can undermine the prime minister's control and influence. He is a master at this kind of games, and I salute him for that. In politics, age and ambition have no limit. Therefore, do not underestimate the will of an old man. When dealing with an adversary, it is not only his actions, but his intentions that have to be watched. If one does not act first, one will suffer the consequences." The Yusakan assemblyman said that the 98-year-old Mahathir could even become prime minister again if all his enemies regard this as impossible and remain off guard. Saleh, a former communications and multimedia minister, added that PAS would not have supported Mahathir unless it believed that he could help PN regain federal power. Last Thursday, Terengganu Menteri Besar Ahmad Samsuri Mokhtar said a new grouping comprising PN-led states, known as the State Government 4, SG4, was in the works, with Mahathir set to serve as their unofficial advisor. On September 2, Mahathir met with a top-level PAS delegation, which included the Menteris Besar of the 4 PN states, namely Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah, and Perlis. Anwar was in Mahathir's cabinet from 1983 until his sacking from both UMNO and the government in 1998. He served as Deputy Prime Minister from 1993 to 1998. While Mahathir and Anwar had made up before the 2018 general election and worked together when Pakatan Harapan was in power, their relationship eventually soured again after the fall of the PH government. Before the toppling of the PH government in February 2020, Mahathir had repeatedly promised to hand over the top post to Anwar, who was regarded by PH supporters as their prime minister designate. Apart from increasing the number of seats in the Dewan Rakyat and Johor State Legislative Assembly, Parikatan Nasional is unlikely to benefit from anything by inviting and accepting MUDA into the opposition fold, political analysts said. They came to such a conclusion following MUDA's poor outing during the August 12 state elections, which concluded with all 19 candidates fielded by the party losing their deposits after failing to garner at least 12.5% of the votes in their respective constituencies. The clash in the political ideologies and struggles championed by MUDA and PA, which is the dominant party in PN, they said, would make it difficult for the youth-led party to form a strong cooperation with the opposition pact. Dr. Anil Adzali Hasnal said MUDA risks having its reputation disintegrated if the party decides to accept Jerican's invitation to join PN. He said, "Joining PN will do more harm than good to MUDA. The ideologies championed by MUDA seem more liberal compared to those in PA. MUDA will be forced to either be flexible or relax their political ideologies to fit in with other component parties in PN if the former decides to accept the invitation to join the opposition. And I do not think MUDA President Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman will be happy with that. At the moment, Syed Saddiq is happy with MUDA being the third force in the country's political landscape. MUDA has only one seat each in Parliament and the Johor State Assembly. Syed Saddiq is the Muar Member of Parliament while his deputy Amira Aizya Abd Aziz is the Puteri Wangsa Assemblyman. Former PKR member Cyril Emma Rina Abu Sama has defended freedom of speech and the right of peaceful assembly after she was called by police to investigate her role in the Selamatkan Malaysia rally. She said it is not wrong for anyone to express their opinion, as long as they are not breaking the law. It is fine for me as long as it's not crime-related. Cyril Emma, better known as Ratu Naga, alleged that Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has forgotten his past, alluding to him having taken part in numerous demonstrations during the Reformasi era of the late 1990s by allowing the police to take action against a peaceful rally. She said, "We understand that Anwar was famous for defending freedom of speech and street assembly in the past. We don't understand why so many people were called to give a statement for the peaceful assembly held on September 16. We hope to become like him as well." Yesterday, media reported that several people, including Perikatan Nasional leaders, who took part in the Selamatkan Malaysia rally, have been summoned by police to give statements at the Dang Wangi police headquarters. Cyril Emma and Badrul Hasham Shaharan, also known as Chegubard, were among those summoned. Meanwhile, Cyril Emma's lawyer, Zaid Malik, urged the government to examine the judicial basis for its investigation of the rally. He said Cyril Emma was investigated under Section 9(5) of the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012, but there was a precedent set by the Court of Appeal ruling that this article violated the constitutional right to peaceful assembly. Zaid said, "The investigation under this law is not valid and is against the federal constitution based on the precedent case of Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad, the public prosecutor, in 2014. All these investigations are without basis of law. Therefore, I urge the government to take immediate action." Tourism, Arts, and Culture Minister Tiong King Singh told the opposition today to work with his ministry to promote tourism, instead of playing with racial sentiments that could draw foreign tourists away. He said that according to complaints he received from Chinese tourists, the racial remarks made by Perikatan Nasional's leaders have made them indecisive about visiting Malaysia. He said, "Let's not engage in divisive actions. I'll be honest, tourists from China have informed us that if we talk like that, they are uncertain whether they should go to Malaysia." Tiong said his ministry is prepared to assist the tourism destinations in the various states. He said some member of parliament did not attend meetings conducted by his ministry despite the invitations extended to them in response to their suggestions on developing tourism in their constituencies. He said, "The suggestions were good, but we need to cooperate." When the ministry invited them for a meeting, some did not attend. During the budget, we will invite the Member of Parliament involved with tourism, and we hope they can give their cooperation. Tyon also said 12.7 million tourists had visited Malaysia as of the third week of August. He said the ministry hoped that this year's target of 16.1 million tourists would be achieved.
Former Bersatu Information Chief Dato' Wan Saiful Wan Jan said reformacy is no longer the government's agenda or priority after Dato' Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi was granted a discharge not amounting to an acquittal. Taisek Galugar Member of Parliament is claiming last night that this followed the dropping of other charges involving politicians after the Pakatan Harapan became the government. He said, "I think this is what the government wants now, when individuals whose integrity and credibility were previously questioned are finally freed from all charges by using existing powers. This means that the reformacy touted by the PH government and Barisan Nasional is long dead." Wan Saiful called for the separation of powers between the Attorney General and the Public Prosecutor to be implemented immediately to ensure that everyone is equal before the law. He added that Perikatan Nasional will take over the reforms if the PHBN coalition fails to do so. He said, "The long-sought-for separation of power seems to have been forgotten by the government even though we started fighting for this issue since 2010. If PHBN cannot do it, PN can because we are more consistent when it comes to reforms than the current government." On September 4, Zahid, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and BN Chairman, was granted a DNAA for all 47 of his corruption, criminal breach of trust, and money laundering charges involving his foundation, Yayasan Akalbudi. A DNAA means that an accused person can be charged again with the same charges. Yesterday, Prime Minister Dato' Seri Anwar Ibrahim denied in Parliament that he had a hand in the decision. He said it fell within the purview of the Attorney General and questioned those who hurled allegations against him, including the opposition bloc. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's role as an advisor to a grouping of 4 PS-led states will not have any bearing on Muhyiddin Yassin's standing as Perikatan Nasional chairman, analysts said. Akademi Nusantra's Azmi Hassan said Mahathir would merely be an economic advisor to the group, known as the State Government 4 or SG4. This, he said, would be similar to the role played by Anwar Ibrahim in the Selangor government previously. Azmi believes PAS merely wants to use the former Prime Minister to its benefit to give the state governments of Perlis, Kedah, Kelantan and Terengganu, which it governs, some economic credence and clout. Mahathir's advisory role would also help to get rid of the negative stigma often associated with PAS-administered states, he added. He said Mahathir, being a former prime minister, has vast experience. His clout and influence is particularly important in terms of spreading the perception that the 4 states are heading towards a better future. Last week, Terengganu Menteri Besar Ahmad Samsuri Mokhtar said a grouping of PN-led states was in the works with Mahathir acting as its unofficial advisor. Samsuri said Mahathir's role would be primarily to advise on effective and efficient governance as well as to connect the states with foreign investors. However, UMNO's Salah said Kerouat claimed the move was aimed at projecting Mahathir as PN's de facto leader, thereby diminishing Muhyiddin's prominence. James Chin of the University of Tasmania, however, does not think this latest development would affect Muhyiddin in any way as Mahathir would only be serving as a mentoring icon. He said PN was uniting different parties and icons to go up against Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and the unity government under its big tent concept. Nonetheless, he said, PN's dominance would not be usurped. He said they're only after one thing, which is to pull down the Anwar-led government, so if Mahathir wants to help them, why not? Mahathir wants to pull Anwar down as soon as possible. Time is running out and age is catching up. Ibrahim Sufyan of Merdeka Center, however, said using Mahathir to discredit the ruling government could be counterproductive for PN as the former prime minister was no longer as popular as he used to be. Thank you.